The bright lights of Hollywood shimmered with a special kind of electricity as the studio audience settled into their seats, their collective hum of anticipation filling the air. This was the stage where secrets were playfully unveiled and the strength of new bonds was put to the ultimate, humorous test. The iconic theme music swelled, and a voice projected with theatrical enthusiasm announced the beginning of another lively session of the Newlywed Game. 4 couples sat in the spotlight, each representing a unique chapter of a budding romance. There were Margie and David Foster, whose journey as a married couple had begun a mere 6.5 weeks prior. Next to them were Jackie and Patrick McNeil, already 8 months into their lifelong commitment. The third and fourth couples, the Lantrys and the Kahns, shared a similar milestone, having both been married for exactly 2.5 months. Leslie and Jeff Lantry shared a quiet, knowing look, while Anne and Rich Kahn waved cheerfully to the cameras. The atmosphere reached a crescendo as Bob Eubanks, the charismatic star and seasoned guide of this matrimonial journey, stepped onto the stage. He greeted the audience and the contestants with a warmth that felt both professional and genuinely welcoming. After a brief round of introductions, the rules were established. The game would begin by testing the husband's intuition while the wives were escorted to a soundproof room, ensuring that their later answers would be entirely their own. Bob explained that the goal was simple yet challenging. The husbands had to predict exactly how their wives would respond to a series of questions. Points would be awarded for every matching answer, leading up to the ultimate prize of a romantic second honeymoon. As the ladies departed, a hush fell over the remaining men. Bob turned to them with a mischievous glint in his eye, ready to dive into the first set of 5-point questions. The first inquiry delved into the delicate territory of romantic initiative, asking which spouse was more often in the mood for a quickie. Rich Kahn was the first to answer, letting out a nervous laugh before admitting that it was likely his wife, and, as he often found himself preoccupied with the stresses of work. Jeff Lantry echoed this sentiment, pointing out that their opposite schedules often meant he was asleep when Leslie was most awake. Patrick McNeil, however, took a different stance, confidently claiming that he was the one more frequently in the mood, noting that Jackie was often deeply engrossed in her responsibilities as a teacher. David Foster rounded out the group with a bold declaration of his own constant readiness, prompting a light-hearted warning from Bob to maintain his composure for the remainder of the show. The second question moved from the bedroom to the wardrobe, asking the men to recall a specific time their wives had modeled an outfit that they simply did not like. Jeff immediately thought of a white jumpsuit Leslie had once worn, describing it as unfortunately baggy and failing to do justice to her figure. Patrick recalled a blue sweater vest belonging to Jackie's father, an old and oversized garment that didn't quite fit his taste. David mentioned a pink and black dress that had failed to impress him, while Rich struggled to remember the details of a green top with designs that Anne had considered wearing for that very show. The final question of the opening round required the husbands to complete a sentence about their wives' past romances. Bob asked them to provide a first name only for someone their wife was once romantic with, but whom the husband would now consider a creep. Patrick and David both pointed to a man named Rick, with David confirming that Rick was indeed an ex-boyfriend he found particularly distasteful. Rich mentioned a man named Mike with a touch of melancholy, while Jeff brought up someone named Jimmy, emphatically stating that the man was nothing like him. As the show transitioned into a commercial break, the screen filled with festive messages and helpful advice for the viewers at home. There were reminders of the joy of the holiday season with Betty White, heartfelt recommendations for healthcare from legendary quarterback Joe Montana, and convenient solutions for home organization and comfort. These interlopes provided a brief moment of reflection before the game resumed its high-energy pace. When the wives returned to the stage, the excitement was palpable. The cards containing the husbands' predictions were placed on their laps, and the moment of truth arrived. Margie Foster was the first to address the question of romantic mood. She spoke eloquently of her preference for long and luxurious sessions, predicting that David would say he was the one more often in the mood for something quicker. Her prediction was a perfect match, earning them their first 5 points. Jackie McNeil also named her husband, describing how he would often approach her while she was working at the computer. Leslie Lantry and Anne Kahn, however, both surprised the audience by naming themselves. Leslie confessed to being the one who often hunted her husband down, while Anne admitted she was the one usually asking for the quickies. Both answers matched their husbands' predictions, much to the delight of the crowd. The fashion question proved to be a bit more complicated. Jackie recalled a red dress, which didn't match Patrick's memory of the blue sweater vest. Leslie correctly identified the baggy white jumpsuit Jeff had mentioned, even jokingly vowing to throw it away after the show. And recalled a conservative blue top she had considered for the show, which was a near miss for Rich's memory of the green top. Margie hoped David would remember a bubbly blue dress she loved, but was disappointed to find he had named the pink and black dress instead. The round concluded with the question about past romances. Leslie and Jeff found a match with the name Jimmy, whom Leslie described with a laugh as a rock and roll slug. And Rich also matched on the name Mike, though Anne worried she might get in trouble since Mike had been the best man at their wedding. Margie shared a complex story about a man named Rick who had ended up living with David's ex-wife, a detail that David had correctly anticipated. Jackie named a man named Javier, but since Patrick had written down a different name, they failed to earn points for that round. The game then moved into a more serious phase, with the questions now worth 10 points each. This time, the husbands were the ones sequestered, leaving the wives to predict their thoughts. Bob asked the ladies to identify what their husbands would say was the least important factor in choosing a spouse: a brain, a body, or a personality. All four women, Leslie, Jackie, Margie, and Anne, chose body as the least important factor, emphasizing the value they placed on conversation and character. The next question was a humorous hypothetical involving a scientific study by NASA in their bedrooms. Bob asked what their husbands would say if a technician suddenly shouted, "Houston, we have a problem." Jackie predicted Patrick would point to a lack of action. Margie suggested David would say there was too much activity, and thought Rich would mention that they were both too sleepy, and Leslie believed Jeff would point out that he was simply never there because of his work schedule. Before the final confrontation, a 25-point bonus question was posed: which room in their home did their husbands believe had the brightest light bulb? And Anne and Margie both guessed the bedroom, while Leslie chose the bathroom and Jackie chose the living room. As the husbands returned for the final tally, the tension was thick. For the question regarding the least important factor in marriage, Patrick, Jeff, and Rich all correctly guessed that their wives would choose body. David, however, took a different route, suggesting that personality was the least important because Margie was so enamored with his brain and body. This led to a humorous exchange where Margie reminded him of her earlier comments about his stoutness. The NASA question proved to be a major hurdle. Jeff guessed that his being asleep was the problem, failing to match Leslie's answer about his absence. Rich also missed the mark, mentioning his own absence while Anne had focused on their collective sleepiness. David's answer about too much sleep failed to match Margie's claim of too much activity. Patrick guessed that Jackie wasn't there, missing her point about the lack of action. The climax of the show rested on the 25-point bonus question about the light bulbs. David Foster guessed the kitchen, which didn't match Margie's guess of the bedroom, leaving them in last place. Patrick McNeil guessed the bedroom, but since Jackie had named the living room, they also missed out on the points. Rich Khan guessed the bathroom, which clashed with Anne's choice of the bedroom. Finally, it was Jeff Lantry's turn. With 25 points already on the board, a correct match would secure the victory. Jeff confidently answered that the bathroom had the brightest light bulb. The audience erupted in cheers as Leslie's card was revealed to show the exact same answer. With a total of 50 points, Jeff and Leslie Lantry were declared the grand prize winners of the Newlywed game. The show concluded with a celebration of the winning couple, who were now looking forward to a luxurious and secluded second honeymoon in the Caribbean. Bob Eubanks bid a fond farewell to the audience, reminding everyone of the enduring power of laughter and the beautiful complexity of love. As the lights dimmed on the Hollywood stage, the couples walked away with more than just points. They carried with them the shared joy of a day spent celebrating their new lives together.